The courthouse in Oak Ridge was buzzing that morning. Reporters crowded the steps, cameras flashed, and whispers filled the hallways. It wasn't every day the town hosted a trial that felt like it belonged on the front page of every newspaper. The case was big: armed robbery, reckless endangerment, and a history of violence. People came to see justice served, but no one was more unaware of the storm ahead than Judge Matthew Cole. Judge Cole had seen it all during his years on the bench. Thieves, liars, desperate souls trying to claw their way out of bad decisions. He wore the robe like armor, his face unreadable, his voice steady. Justice was his guiding light, and he had built his reputation on never wavering, never allowing personal feelings to interfere. But this day would test him in ways he never imagined. The bailiff's voice rang out as the defendant was brought in. Shackles clinked, echoing through the silent courtroom. Every eye turned to the man entering. His posture slouched, his face weary from nights spent in a cold cell. His name was Daniel Rivers, accused of masterminding a late-night robbery that left a small business owner terrified for his life. Judge Cole adjusted his glasses and looked down at the man standing before him. And then the world seemed to tilt. For a moment, Cole forgot where he was. The stern courtroom faded, replaced by the dusty streets of his childhood neighborhood. He saw two boys racing their bikes down cracked sidewalks, daring each other go faster, laughing until their lungs gave out. He saw afternoons spent by the creek, trading secrets, making promises, swearing they'd never let life pull them apart. And in all those memories, standing right beside him, was Daniel Rivers. The realization hit him like a blow. The defendant in front of him wasn't just another name on the docket. He was his childhood friend. Cole's grip tightened on the bench. He blinked once, twice, trying to reconcile the man in front of him with the boy he used to know. The boy who once patched up his scraped knee, who once shared peanut butter sandwiches on the back porch, who once promised, "We'll always have each other's backs, no matter what." But the man now wore chains. His eyes were harder, older, shadowed by mistakes and regrets. Still, buried beneath the rough edges, there was something hauntingly familiar. The same tilt of the head, the same flicker of recognition sparking in his eyes. For the briefest moment, their gazes locked. Daniel's lips parted as if he wanted to speak, but the weight of the courtroom silenced him. The bailiff guided him to his seat, and the trial pressed forward. Yet that glance was enough. Judge Cole knew that Daniel remembered him too. A storm began to build in Cole's chest. His mind raced through questions he could never ask aloud. What had happened to the boy he once knew? How had Daniel ended up here, accused of crimes that could lock him away for years? And what was Cole supposed to do now, standing as the arbiter of justice over his own friend? The prosecutor began his opening statement, his words sharp and confident, describing Daniel as a career criminal. But Judge Cole barely heard him. His ears buzzed with the echo of the past. He remembered Daniel's laugh, the way he used to dream big, the way he once swore he'd leave town and make something of himself. Somewhere between then and now, life had swallowed those dreams whole. Still, Cole couldn't let the memories weaken him. The robe he wore was more than cloth. It was responsibility, and the town trusted him to uphold it. But how do you separate duty from memory when the past is staring at you with familiar eyes? The gavel in his hand felt heavier than ever. His role was to judge, to decide based on law, not emotion. Yet he couldn't escape the thought that this trial wasn't just about a defendant and a crime. It was about two boys who had once been brothers in everything but blood. One who had found his way to the bench, and one who had stumbled into the dock. The trial was just beginning, but already Judge Cole knew this would not be just another case. This was personal. And as he straightened in his chair, hiding the turmoil inside, he realized something chilling. Whatever happened in this courtroom would not only decide Daniel Rivers' fate, it would test the very core of who Matthew Cole was. The trial moved forward like a river cutting through stone, steady, relentless, impossible to stop. The prosecutor laid out his case with cold precision, painting Daniel Rivers as a man who had wasted second chances, a repeat offender who had finally gone too far. The robbery, he said, was proof of a dangerous pattern. Witnesses described a masked figure who stormed into the convenience store, waving a weapon and demanding cash. The story sounded airtight. Judge Matthew Cole sat silently, outwardly composed, but inside his chest, his heart pounded like a drum. Each word from the prosecutor was a nail in Daniel's coffin, and with every strike, Cole's mind slipped back into the past. He remembered a younger Daniel, fiercely protective, the kind of boy who'd step into a fight to defend a friend, even when the odds were against him. That boy didn't fit the picture of the criminal being described. When it was the defense attorney's turn, the energy shifted. She spoke with urgency, insisting that Daniel was not the man who had committed the crime. The evidence is circumstantial, she argued. My client has struggled, yes, but he is not guilty of this crime. Her voice trembled just enough to reveal the weighted case. Judge Cole's eyes drifted toward Daniel. He sat hunched, his hands clasped tightly, his jaw clenched as though he were holding back words he dared not speak. Every so often he glanced up at Cole, quick, fleeting looks that carried volumes. Neither man could speak of the truth they both knew, that once they had been inseparable, that once they had promised to always look out for each other. The gavel banged. Order was demanded. The court moved forward. But beneath the formality, tension stretched like a wire ready to snap. Witness after witness was called. Some swore they recognized Daniel's voice during the robbery. Others admitted they couldn't be certain. A grainy security camera played on the monitor for the jury, showing a masked man in dark clothes. The figure's build resembled Daniel's, but the image was too blurred for clarity. The prosecutor pressed hard. Motive, opportunity, history. He reminded the jury that Daniel had once been arrested for petty theft, that he had lived a life teetering on the edge of crime. He built a picture of a man who was always destined to fall this way. And through it all, Judge Cole listened, his face a mask of neutrality, though his mind churned with conflict. Was this truly the same boy who had once spent summer nights planning a future that never came? Or was the prosecutor right, that Daniel's path had always been leading here? Then came a moment that changed everything. The defense attorney called Daniel to the stand. A hush fell over the room. It was a gamble, allowing the accused to speak directly, to be tested, to be torn apart by the prosecution. But perhaps, she believed, his voice could sway the jury. Daniel stood, walked to the stand, and swore the oath. His voice was low, roughened by years of hardship. I didn't do this, he said. I know what I've done in the past. I know I've made mistakes. But this wasn't me. He spoke about his struggles, odd jobs, bad decisions, a life that had never quite gone right. But he insisted he had been trying. He swore he had been at home that night, alone, nowhere near the store. His story wasn't perfect, but his words carried a weight that the sterile evidence could not. Judge Cole studied him. He searched Daniel's face for lies, for cracks in the story. Instead, he saw the same stubborn fire he remembered from childhood, the same fire that had once driven Daniel to stand up to bullies, to never back down even when the odds were against him. The prosecutor rose, sharp as a blade. You expect this jury to believe you, he asked. You, a man with a record? A man who's lied before? A man who's taken what didn't belong to him? Daniel's jaw tightened. I've done wrong, he admitted. But I didn't do this. The exchange was tense, electric, every word pulling the jury in two directions. Some faces showed doubt. Others looked convinced of guilt. And at the center of it all, Judge Cole sat, trapped between two worlds, the duty to remain impartial and the undeniable pull of the past. He could not intervene. He could not reveal what he knew or the bond they once shared, but he also could not silence the question gnawing at his heart. Was Daniel Rivers truly guilty, or was the boy he once called brother sitting before him, innocent yet doomed by the shadows of his past? The courtroom buzzed as the testimony ended, and Cole knew this trial wasn't just about law. It was about fate, about loyalty, and about the thin, fragile line between who we were and who we become. And the verdict, still distant, loomed like a storm on the horizon. The final day of the trial arrived like a storm cloud settling over the courthouse. The air inside the courtroom was heavy, thick with the anticipation of a decision that would alter a man's life forever. The jury sat with stern faces, notebooks filled with scrawled thoughts and uncertainties. On one side, the prosecutor's case gleamed like a polished sword, sharp, precise, undeniable. On the other, the defense clung to hope, a fragile shield against the tide. Judge Matthew Cole took his seat, his robe flowed behind him like a curtain falling on a stage. He looked across the room at Daniel Rivers. Daniel's shoulders were squared, but the tension in his hands betrayed him. Knuckles white, fingers twitching against the wooden table. Their eyes met briefly, and in that single second, it wasn't a defendant staring at a judge. It was Daniel, the boy who had once shared his dreams of escaping their broken town, staring at Matthew, the friend who had believed in him. The closing arguments began. The prosecutor delivered his words with the confidence of a man who smelled victory. He spoke of Daniel's record, of the grainy video that, while unclear, still suggested a man of Daniel's size and build. He reminded the jury of the witness who swore she heard Daniel's voice during the robbery. He ended with a damning declaration. A man's past tells the story of his future. Do not be swayed by excuses. Look at the facts. The defense attorney rose next, her voice steady but pleading. She spoke not only of reasonable doubt, but of redemption. A man is not the sum of his mistakes, she said, her words cutting through the courtroom silence. Daniel Rivers has stumbled, yes, but he is not the masked figure in that store. Don't convict a man because of who he used to be. Convict him only if you're certain of who he is now. Her words hung in the air like smoke, impossible to clear. Then it was time. The jury filed out, and the room waited. Hours passed, agonizing hours where Matthew Cole sat in chambers, staring at the walls, his mind spiraling back into memory. He remembered a summer evening when Daniel had patched up Matthew's scraped knee after a fall. He remembered the night Daniel had sworn they would both get out of that small town, no matter what. And he remembered the day Daniel disappeared from his life, swallowed by choices that had led him here. When the jury returned, every head in the courtroom lifted. The foreman stood, a sheet of paper trembling in his hands. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Cole asked, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Yes, Your Honor. The paper was handed over. Cole unfolded it slowly. His eyes scanned the words, and for a moment the world fell silent. On the charge of armed robbery, he read aloud, we, the jury, find defendant. A breathless pause filled the air. Daniel's eyes locked onto his. The room seemed to lean forward, every heartbeat pounding in unison. Not guilty. Gasps erupted, followed by murmurs of disbelief and relief. Daniel exhaled, his chest collapsing like a man freed from invisible chains. His attorney gripped his shoulder, whispering congratulations. The prosecutor scowled, already thinking of appeals. But Daniel's eyes never left Matthew's. The gavel came down. Court is adjourned. Chairs scraped. Voices rose. The courtroom dissolved into chaos. Yet Judge Cole remained seated, frozen in place, watching as Daniel slowly approached the bench. For a moment, protocol dissolved. Matt, Daniel whispered, his voice raw with emotion. You remember me, don't you? Judge Cole's throat tightened. He wasn't supposed to respond, not as a judge, not in front of others. But the years of silence cracked under the weight of this moment. "I never forgot," Cole said softly, his words almost lost in the noise around them. Daniel's eyes glistened, and for a heartbeat the courtroom, the trial, the years, all of it disappeared. They were just two boys again, standing on the edge of their dreams. But reality pulled them back. Daniel turned, walking out of the courtroom a free man, though the scars of his past still clung to him. Cole watched him go, his heart torn between relief and sorrow. That night, alone in his chambers, Judge Matthew Cole sat at his desk, staring at the gavel that had sealed so many fates. He thought about justice, about mercy, about the fragile thread that ties one life to another, and he whispered into the empty room, "Some verdicts aren't written on paper. They're written in the choices we make, and the bonds we never truly lose." Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the storm that had passed inside that courtroom. But for Matthew Cole and Daniel Rivers, their lives had been forever altered, not by guilt or innocence, but by the recognition that even after years apart, the past has a way of finding us.